quick introduction, just so you've got a little context. This is actually my 24th year at Fleishman Hillard. I like to say I started when I was 12, but it's not true. My background was I was a television reporter and anchor for a number of years, and then a spokesperson for a couple of governors back in the state of Missouri, where I grew up. I've been leading our Fleishman Hillard office in Sacramento for 13 years. This is the office that specializes in food and agribusiness communications specifically, and we've been proud to call you guys a client for a long time. But let me dive in. I know you guys have been talking about this performance message for a while and the performance strategy. It's an awesome story, and we're finally able, as people have alluded to really go proactive versus defensive in talking about our product. So quick agenda of what I'm going to cover today. The messages which we're currently looking at. I want to talk to you a little bit about why we have messages, put it in context. Then I want to get into some of the how you effectively deliver these messages, a few bonus tips, and then I'll do my best to show you how messages can work on your behalf. So again, just looking at them now, and you certainly can reference them as you go, and this will make a little bit more sense as I get into the presentation. You can see here, what Kathy just walked through is, I think, critically important because we have credibility in telling our story. Our strategy is based in nutrition science, and that's critically important as we move forward because there's going to be people who are going to want to shoot holes in the messages that we're looking to take forward. So in a nutshell, as you can see, and these are the primary messages, and we've got proof points underneath each of them, it's this notion that we're finally telling people why they should eat potatoes, not just that they can eat potatoes. And it's all being centered around what Kathy just described and what we've kind of put in this nutshell of potatoes contain the complex carbohydrate, the potassium, and the energy you need to fuel performance. We're bringing it all to life in an exciting new campaign called What Are You Eating? A message we've added for all of you in this room is to go back and spread the word and tell everybody in the industry to get involved, check out the website, learn how they can personally activate and move forward with this campaign. So that's the context for what I'm going to walk through here. Let's talk about messages and why you have them. If you guys can make out this cartoon, you've got a guy who authored this ginormous book, and he's sitting here with a talk show host, and you can see he's holding it, and he says, if you were to boil your book down to a few words, what would be its message? That's the challenge. When you think of everything everybody in this room knows about potatoes, and somebody just asks you general questions, how do you begin to focus and tell just a particular story? So that's why we boil things down to just a few messages, to give us focus and to really get some key messages across that are important to us. So I'm going to briefly go through why we sort of start with messages. It's not everything you could say. It's the things that you want people to remember and repeat. And that's really the focus of this particular campaign. Messages are very few carefully prepared, concise thoughts that reflect your business objectives. That's critical, and differentiate you in a way that's accessible and memorable. And I think that's what's great about where we're at with messaging. We're trying to turn perceptions completely around about our product. And so it should be memorable. It should be newsworthy. This is a year filled with a lot of opportunity from a marketing perspective. To give you a little bit more context, there's a number of studies that are done. And this number 5,000, that's the estimated number of messages all of us encounter on a daily basis. We are getting inundated with messages, checking our phone, if you're checking Facebook, everything that's out there, the billboards you see, there's just a ton of messages coming at all of us day in, day out. 7 is an interesting number, and that comes from a study that's been done by the University of Indiana dating back to the 1960s. And what they do is every year they measure the average length of a soundbite on the national news in a presidential campaign. And back in 1964, the average soundbite was 48 seconds long. Now it's 7 seconds long. The point is, when you do get an opportunity to tell your message, you've got to be so concise and so quick and so efficient. Related to 7, 140. It takes about 140 characters to make up a 7-second message. What's interesting about that is 140 is also the maximum length most people use on Twitter to put a message out there in today's society. So messages exist to counteract clutter, not contribute to it. We've got to break through and have messages that are memorable and make a difference. The great thing about messages, everybody always thinks about media, but I've been doing media training for over 20 years now, and I can work with CEOs or whoever it is, and they'll say, it helped me with the interview, but it really helped me with my employees to give me focus for a one-on-one conversation to say, what are the 3 main points I want to deliver? For all of us in the USA Potatoes group, the messages you're looking at are going to drive all the marketing content across all our platforms, all our channels. When we're talking to consumers and influencers, this is the message we're going to be delivering. We're going to constantly be reminding the industry that this is what we're doing. And then when crisis and issues come up, we're going to look to these messages and see if they have a role to play there as well. So the key about messages is about the time all of us are getting tired of them and sick of them, they're probably just beginning to work. You got to stay with them. You got to consistently and continually deliver them. I've got a few videos to play because, again, I'm right before lunch and I'm worried about everybody dozing off on me. So I'm going to bring a little entertainment value here as well. This first message, though, just to put a little context, there's a documentary that's out called The War Room. And if anybody likes documentaries, this is one I'd highly recommend. It's about the first time Bill Clinton ran for office in 1992. And everybody has probably heard that messages, always originate with politicians. We all get frustrated because you see the debates and they ask a question, they ignore the question and they immediately go to their messages. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the bottom line is the reason politicians use messages is because they work. And they've been around for years, but it was the Clinton campaign where messages really took on a new life. So if we can click this particular video, just click the Define Your Agenda, it should come up.
I want people to know what the message is. How can you tell 250 million Americans why you run for president if you can't tell 250 staff members?
Besides Bill Clinton, one person really gave this campaign focus. And one person wrote what I call a haiku about 5 months ago. Change versus more of the same. The economy's stupid. I think if you did a nexus, it would come up in about 1,000 places. And don't forget healthcare. I was kidding James yesterday. I said he's about to pass from the role of regular human being into the role of a legend.
So if you can click the home screen, it should take us back to this slide there. The point being, that Clinton campaign, and there's a few people with gray hair in the room, you may recall, had all kinds of controversy. There was Gennifer Flowers, was there draft dodging involved? Did he or didn't he inhale? All that stuff was out there. But in the post-mortem after the election, which of course he won, they asked his key staff members, when were you really worried in that campaign? Which of those things worried you the most? They said, none of that bothered us. The only time we were in trouble is when we got off message. We needed to always be staying and talking about, don't forget healthcare, the economy's stupid, and change versus more of the same. So that one discipline alone helped Bill Clinton get elected back in 1992. The other great thing about messages is if once we all get comfortable with them, it'll make it easy for you to tell your story. If we can think about, we've got a campaign that's based in a really bold strategy of telling people not only, can they eat our potatoes, they should eat our product moving forward because it's science-based, nutrition-based, and we're bringing it to life in a number of ways. If we can all get that down, it's easy for us to tell our story, and it makes it easy for others to remember the key things we want them to take away. The other great thing about messages is if you are in a setting where somebody's asking you confrontational questions or odd questions or weird questions, swim your way back to your message points because that's where we want to be. That's the story we want to tell. Those are the messages we want people to take away. The other thing is when all of you in this room start speaking with one voice, the message starts sticking. And that's what's critical, is we don't want to be delivering contradictory messages. We can play a little bit of this snippet too. This is from the California raisin industry, another client we've had for a number of years. And they decided during this particular campaign year that they wanted to deliver some key messages. So we equipped the spokespeople with it. So it's actually, if you can click on the Ensure Consistency one, that's the one I wanted to play.
If you have just 1/4 cup of raisins, that's one fruit serving that you already knocked off.
Raisins, a very nutritious flavor boost. You know, they have antioxidants, they have fiber, there's no cholesterol, there's no fat, and a 1/4 cup serving equals, you know, the same as one serving of fruit.
And one of my favorites is California raisins. They're fat-free, low in sodium, and just a 1/4 cup of California raisins is one serving of fruit.
Great on-the-go snack is California raisins. Just 1/4 cup is a serving of fruit. So you can grab that and go. You also get fiber and antioxidants in that.
California raisins.
Always a
You can
great
go ahead and click
Yogurt.
out of it. You
Again,
get
we're
the
getting
point.
fiber, we're getting protein, high.
That's what we want. Everybody talking about the fact that potatoes contain the complex carbohydrate, the potassium, and the energy you need to fuel performance. That's the message we want to stick as we're out there telling our story. The bottom line is if everybody gets on board, we're going to accelerate the success of this campaign if we can just be so focused in how we're talking about this and how we're delivering our messages. Quickly, I want to talk to you about the way we build messages to understand it. As you look at the handout there, you've got the bold primary message, and that's usually the takeaway we want people to have. That's 15 to 20 words. It shouldn't change often. Proof points are underneath it, and that's where we sort of prove why the assertion we're making is true. So when you spend some more time with these messages, you're going to understand how they work and why they are built that particular way. I've already been delivering a message to you guys for this presentation. Focusing on a few main messages is key to effective communication. That's the primary. My proof point, there's 5,000 messages out there a day. We've got to break through. It's easier to say it's easier to be successful if you know what you want to say in advance. This one discipline alone has helped win presidential elections. So that's how we build messages, and that's how we found them to be most effective over the years. A couple of other things about the way we develop them. This may sound silly. So many organizations and companies that we work with will say, oh, we've already got our messages, and then they hand me 17 pages. And that is not uncommon. It may sound trivial, but if our messages don't fit on one page, I would say we've got work to do. And our messages do fit on one page, and that's very intentional. It gives us focus, it allows it to be memorable and to be delivered. One of the hardest things of arriving at messages is it's easy to write 17 pages. It's hard to boil it down to one page. You know, there's a famous story about Ernest Hemingway that he won a bet that said, can you write a short 6-word essay that could make people cry? And he wrote, "For sale, baby shoes never worn." And my point is, concise, specific, strategic messages, that's what we're going for, and that's what we're arriving at for this campaign. You don't have to memorize every word on the page. We're trying to contextually get everybody in the same place. You may have your own spin, your own way of telling this story, but we want everyone to contextually be in the same place. We wrote some messages for Gold Gems. I always use this as an example because we told all the spokespeople at Gold Gem at the time, just whatever interview, whatever setting you go in, remember you want to talk about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that's the mental cue to tell your story. And the way I've been thinking as I spend more time with the potatoes messages, I think of strategy. That's the strategy we're employing, the science that backs it up, and then the campaign. So when you talk to people, we want to talk about the strategy, the science behind it, and the campaign that's bringing it to life. That's really the simple way to think about how we're going to tell this story. So let's get into how we effectively deliver it. I know you're going to have some presentation training later today, and we just go through this quickly. The old adage is tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. So if you're presenting or if you're having a one-on-one conversation or you're doing a media interview, you want to out of the gate put your 3 primary messages out there. And then the follow-up is you get into some of the proof points of why we believe what we're saying. And always close a conversation, a presentation, an interview by reminding people of the key messages. Here's the watch out for all of us. If I want you to take away the quarter that I have in my pocket, I shouldn't also get out my car keys, my chapstick, the dime, and 3 pennies. So don't put other things out there for people to take away. Never give them anything you don't want them to use. Can we play this clip real quickly?
We're here in front of the Shop Around the Corner, the
famous West Side Children's Bookstore, now on the verge of having to close its doors because the big bad wolf, Fox Books, has opened only a few hundred feet away, wooing customers with its sharp discounts and designer coffee.
They have to have discounts and lattes because most of the people who work there have never read a book.
I sell cheap books. I do, so sue me.
And that, in a nutshell, is the Fox
Hey!
Books philosophy.
That's what you said?
Discount and sell.
Yeah, that's not all I said. I said, oh, I can't believe those bastards. I said we were great. I said you could sit and read for hours and no one will bother you. I said we had 150,000 titles. I showed the New York City section. I said we were a goddamn piazza. A place in the city where people could mingle and mix and be.
Piazza?
I was eloquent.
Thanks to the Fox.
Shit.
Piazza.
I have met Joe Fox, and I've heard him compare his store to a price club and the books in it to cans of olive oil.
So, great example. He had his messages, but he threw some other stuff out there, and that's what they took away. So we've got to think about that when we tell this story. So again, focus on the meaning, not the information. I will tell you, know who you're talking to. You know, it's come up with Kathy and RJ that there's times we may really be talking to the hardcore nutritionists who really want to get into some of that science. And honestly, that's probably where we want to defer to people like RJ and Kathy to talk to them. But the bottom line is be careful with jargon depending on who you're speaking with. If it's a general consumer media that you may be speaking with, we even have to be careful of some of the agribusiness jargon that may come into play. And this is sort of a clever clip, and I think it'll make you remember why you've got to be careful with jargon. So let's go ahead and play this one too.
Oh, it's just like, dude, you got the best barrels ever, dude. Just like you pull in and you just get spit right out of them. And you just drop in and just smack the lip, whoop-ah, drop down, snap, and then after that, you just drop in, you just ride the barrel and get pitted, so pitted.
So what exactly is Avicii's magic box?
This is it. This is it.
You had to ask.
Well, it goes into the core of the internet, into the backbone network.
It can take in 2.5 gigabits of capacity and switch that on its own behalf. The ASICs are able to look at the information inside and at the same line rate as the fiber provides the data.
आज की तारीख में सबसे powerful router terabit switch router है.
Is this too technical?
Perfectly clear. Almost.
Okay, it may be easier for us to explain what Avicii's magic box does. It directs information, even complicated information like video, across the internet and into home computers at super speed.
Faster than just about anybody else out there can do it.
We've studied the events of unintended acceleration. One is the entrapment of the mat and the floor pedal, put a stop sign on our vehicles. There are redundant fail-safe mechanisms.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric FAM.
So the bottom line, the importance that we talked about with Kathy and the science is critical, but we've also got to convert our story to messages that are conversational and that people remember. And that's what we've attempted to do with the messages you have in front of you and the messages we'll be bringing to life in this particular campaign. If you can have one great story that helps illustrate what we're trying to communicate, it'll go a long way. And we've collected one already. We know that a Colorado woman recently won this year's Western States 100 endurance race, and she won it while eating mashed potatoes along the way. And what a great story that illustrates what we're trying to talk about with potatoes being a performance food. And so incorporating a great story into our messaging is really critical, and we'll bring it to life. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And we can all use that particular story to get this campaign up and running. You've probably heard, this is where we get into a little bit of traditional media training stuff, blocking and bridging over the years. How do you get from their question to our actual answer, and then a message point? And so we've got a little formula here we use called RAMP. But let me get into some specifics. A handful of phrases, and I've got another handout that I'll give you in a few minutes when I wrap up here on some effective ways to block and bridge. 4 or 5 phrases can get you from any question to the message we want to deliver. And one of the great ones is, no matter the question they ask you, let me clarify. I think what we're really talking about here is, what's the breakthrough moment for us in thinking about the way people consume potatoes? Potatoes are a performance food, and we just kind of twist wherever they're at, and we go to where we want to go. Sometimes people are stuck in the weeds on a subject, and they can't see the broader point that we want to deliver. So wherever they're stuck, we bring them out by saying, that speaks to a broader point, which is, we're now going from telling people they can eat potatoes to they should eat potatoes, and then we're back to where we want to be. The flip side of it is somebody's way up in the sky. Oh yeah, it's a complex issue when it comes to nutrition science and fueling performance, but what it all boils down to is, and we're back to where we want to be. So these handful of phrases, I'm telling you, it's remarkable how they work. A watch out is, somebody may try and say, well, chocolate milk's doing a lot in this space with energy. What do you think they'll have to say about what you're doing? Well, you'd have to ask them. But what I can tell you about what we're doing is this. Never answer for anybody else. There's very little to be gained. So just quickly use that block and bridge to say, for us, I can tell you this. Again, sometimes, whether it's just a person you're talking to, the media, whoever it might be, they're just sort of not getting it. And another way to block and bridge is to say, that's true what you're saying, but I think what's really important, or the real news here, is go back to our messages. So again, I've got a handout. If you can master 4 or 5 phrases, you can get to the story we want to tell from almost any entry point. Another one to watch out for is, they may ask you about something that you just don't know, and that's the answer. I don't really know that. Or maybe they really want to dive into the science and you're not comfortable. I probably wouldn't be either. And saying, if you really want to get into the details of nutrition science, I can connect you with the folks at USA Potatoes, and glad to do it. I don't want to misspeak or misrepresent, so let me connect you to them. So that's another way to potentially go. Okay, so let me move into keys to successfully delivering these messages moving forward. It's the questions that present us with the biggest opportunities. And so whether you go back home and you see another potato grower or somebody in the industry who wasn't able to make this meeting, the first question is probably going to be, what happened? Anything interesting happen? And that's a home run opportunity for you to just, there's a cool new marketing campaign, let me tell you about it. The media are the same way. I was a reporter for 7 years, and you almost always throw a softball question out to warm up an interview. Hey, you guys are just back from let's say it's the Packer. You guys just finished your meeting. Anything interesting come out of there? Boom. We just take control of that and deliver our messages. So always be ready for the first question. Also be ready for the obvious questions that are out there. I'm not going to play the clip in sensitivity to time, but again, for people a little older like me, when Ted Kennedy first ran for president, it was rumored that he was going to run, and he did a famous 60 Minutes interview where they just said, why do you want to be president? And he couldn't answer the question. And it really set back his campaign. So be ready for the obvious questions. If there's dreaded questions, we should talk about them. We've worked with the staff already on what are the watch outs for us, what are the tricky points in talking about this campaign, and let's make sure we're ready for the dreaded questions that may be there. And again, the last question, whether you're wrapping up a conversation, a presentation, or a media interview, you've got a chance to close it out and say, I just want to say at the end of the day, this new strategy we've got about telling people they should eat potatoes is super exciting for us. It's based in nutrition science because potatoes contain the complex carbohydrate, the potassium, the energy people need to fuel performance. It's all coming to life in a great campaign called What Are You Eating? Get that down and close an interview, close a meeting, close a conversation with the message points again. There's some tricky questions, in particular for those of you that at times may deal with the media, but these can also just come from conversations as well. One of the things that's sort of an age-old trick with journalists is they'll just give you 2 choices. So are you just now telling this story because nothing else was working or because you've missed an obvious opportunity all these years? Well, you don't want to choose A or B. You don't want to accept the premise of the question. You want to answer it in an affirmative, positive way. Another watch out is sometimes people just make a false assumption and they pretend that it's true. Since potatoes make people gain weight, isn't this campaign going to lack credibility? We don't want to accept the premise of that particular question. Hypotheticals. You know, if Americans just stopped obsessing over their body image, wouldn't your industry's marketing challenges just go away? Don't fall into a trap of trying to accept a hypothetical question either. So any of these questions that come up, just go to our messages. Since potatoes make people gain weight, isn't this campaign going to lack credibility? That's why this campaign is so exciting, because there's misperceptions about our product out there. But the bottom line is potatoes, and then we go back to our messages. And we just go. We don't accept the premise of that particular question. So let me talk for 2 slides for those of you that may have an opportunity to talk to trade media, local media, et cetera, about this campaign and what's going on. Always think of an interview as a business transaction, not a conversation. And keep in mind, the media a lot of time are coming in with not a lot of background, not a lot of context. And the good news for us is we can take control of that interview and deliver what we want to deliver. Sometimes media can be frustrating and they're stuck on, yeah, but potatoes make you fattening, right? Just keep your cool, be patient with them. Don't think of this as a friend or enemy situation. They're just the way you get the message out to consumers. So think about the people that they're ultimately reaching. Stick to your messages, deliver them, stop talking, let them ask the next question, don't improvise or linger. One thing about the media, and how many people in here have done media interviews over the years? I'm curious. I know a few of you have. Oh, a lot of you have. Okay, great. One of the key things I would say, because reporters know you guys and they're going to contact you, never just dive into an interview. If your phone rings and it's somebody that you know and it's a trade reporter, hey, I heard there's a new campaign, please don't just start answering questions. What I want you to do is say, oh man, I'm so glad you called. I'd love to talk to you. I got to wrap this thing up that I'm working on. When can I call you back? And then set up a time to talk to them, hang up the phone, run and find these, get them in front of you, and prepare yourself for the interview. Don't just wing it. Prepare yourself. It's a big opportunity for us to get our messages out there. So always clear the decks, give the media your attention, and give yourself a chance to be prepared before you start telling our particular story. A few other tips for media interviews. This was a hard one for me. In my years working with the governor, there were days I would do 100 interviews a day, because every little radio station, et cetera. Deliver your message and then stop talking. A lot of times reporters, you know, if it's over the phone or something, it may get quiet because they're taking notes or something like that. Don't fill the gap by don't get the quarter out when we wanted them to take the dime away. Say what you want to say and stop talking. As you saw with Tom Hanks, be careful with humor and sarcasm. Again, you throw a little thing out there that's funny, that may be the quote that they use. So you've got to be careful with humor and sarcasm. Don't reinforce a negative. This is a funny, very brief clip from a recent campaign. Oh my gosh, I forgot the woman's name. But anyway, she had all kinds of accusations against her, and I think some people called her a witch. And this is her campaign ad that she came out with.
I'm not a witch. I'm nothing you've heard.
Christina O'Donnell.
I'm you.
That's like us saying, you know, if somebody says, well, you know potatoes make you fat. Well, you know, I know people think potatoes make you fat. Let's not repeat the negative. Let's not fall into the trap. So watch out for the negatives that are out there. And again, you've all heard the famous Richard Nixon, I'm not a crook, that sticks forever, you know. Don't repeat the negative. Okay. One, I'm going to play this clip because it's funny, and I'm trying to make a reason for it, but I think it is relevant. We're talking about changing perceptions of potatoes and positioning our product as a performance food. In this day and age, a lot of even trade press or bloggers or whoever that we may run into at a trade show or something else, they're videotaping as well, because everybody's got a vlog and everybody's got a video. So if we're doing an interview and we're going to talk about potatoes as a performance food, just look behind you to make sure the setting is appropriate for what you're saying. Ideally, we've got some of our cool banners up and some things like that that reinforce the messaging. To maybe make this stick with you a little bit more, I'm going to play a clip that is Governor Chris Christie talking about the success he's having on his diet. So if we can click this one.
How do you feel? How is your health?
I feel really good. You know, I mean, like we're a little bit more than halfway to my goal in the last 8 months, so that's really good. And I sleep better. I mean, the biggest difference for me, I didn't feel badly at my previous weight, but I didn't realize how poorly I slept until how well I was sleeping. Yeah, woke up a lot during the night.
Don't you just keep looking at the cakes?
Get a lot
I mean,
of
that's the
continuous
thing.
sleep.
You just keep
I was just sleeping a
looking
lot
at the
better.
cake.
So it's really
All right,
bad news
that's
for my
good.
staff because I have more energy, which they didn't think was possible.
You're halfway to your goal?
A little more than halfway. A little more than halfway to my goal.
So think about the background when you're doing a media interview. The other thing about the press is always assume that you're on. And again, we live in a day and age where everybody with a cell phone can be a reporter. And everybody's picking up information, everybody's listening in. If you're at a trade show or wherever you're at, reporters, bloggers, whoever it is, they're always gathering information. So just remember, you're always on when you're in a public setting. Bottom line with these messages is you're going to have to spend some time with them. You're going to have to say them out loud. It's the only way that you really can get comfortable. You know, find your own words if you need to essentially say the same things. You have permission to do that. I've emphasized that if you can, again, find that story about, you know, perhaps it's our Colorado woman who won the endurance race while eating mashed potatoes. That just, to me, that just plants a visual in people's heads of, oh, wow, that's actually interesting and different, and it makes the story really stick. Got to use these messages all the time, consistently, frequently, again, again, again. Guys, this may take 2-3 years for this to really break through. We got to keep hammering home this story, but it's exciting, and I think there's tremendous opportunity here. So practice is critical. It may sound silly, but have your spouse interview you about this over the dinner table, whatever it is. There's something about saying these messages out loud that really makes a difference and really makes an impact. I'm going to play an example from a media interview here. It could also be the same if you play back a conversation or a presentation. You're never perfect in delivering the messages, and that's okay. Just be good at delivering the messages. That's the main point. So let's play this last clip here about, no, there's rarely such thing as a perfect interview.
All right, Mayor prepared to speak about the strike, James?
I worked on it all night, Mike. I have 6 pages of spontaneous remarks.
You know, Mike, if I were deputy mayor, there never would have been a garbage strike. Stuart, I'm sure there are 100 reasons why you think you deserve my job. Oh, good. You read my manifesto.
Any comments on the strike, sir?
I don't think we need to be overly concerned.
I don't think we need to be overly concerned.
We all want this settled quickly?
We all want this settled quickly. Besides,
88%? Good God, 88%! 88% of
88% of all major union strikes end in less than 48 hours, so this shouldn't drag on. Thank you.
And there's your soundbite.
All right, we're golden.
Mr. Mayor, would you consider marching in the Gay Pride Parade this week?
What are you, drunk?
I've been that guy so many times, I can't tell you. You just, you know, geez, you get through it. So I went through that really, really quickly. And before I wrap, I can give you guys a quick example working with my colleague here, Gabby, of maybe how we can put these messages to work. But before we do that, does this make sense? From glancing at the messages, and I know you all need to spend more time, does it look like they're going to be helpful for you? I'm glad to take any questions you've got. Okay, good. Either I'm really good or everyone's just hungry. Gabby, why don't we do this real quick? We thought we'd close with a quick role playing, and I'm going to do my best to answer some of the questions. The scenario that I asked Gabby to take was to be a grower or somebody related to the industry who wasn't able to be at this meeting. And I'm going to play you, and you're being asked about what they learned at the meeting.
Yeah. So Dan, I wasn't able to make it to summer meeting. Did I miss anything important?
There's a really exciting marketing campaign that's coming out of the industry this particular year. Finally, we're able to go on the offensive. For years, we've been telling people they can eat potatoes, but now we want to tell them they should eat potatoes because they fuel performance. The great thing about the strategy is it's based in science. It's based in nutrition science because potatoes contain the complex carbohydrate, the potassium, and the energy that people need to be their best when working out and trying to live a better lifestyle. It's all coming together in a really great new campaign. It's called What Are You Eating? You're going to see it everywhere, but probably most important, since you weren't at the meeting, learn more about it. Go to our website, go to Potatoes USA, find out more information about how you can get involved.
Is that really going to work? So many people still think potatoes aren't good for them.
That's exactly the point. We think in the surprise element of repositioning potatoes as a performance food, we've got tremendous opportunity. We want to change those perceptions and really make people think about potatoes in an entirely different light. Again, the science is behind us. Potatoes are the most energy-packed, popular vegetable out there. It's just time for us to tell our story.
So where and how are we telling this story?
We're going to use athletes to demonstrate how potatoes fuel performance. And we're going to be bringing that to life in advertising, social media, influencer relations, a lot of different vehicles. But the key is, in the way we're delivering the message, we want to pose the question to everybody, all consumers, what are you eating? And our point is, if they're great for athletes to fuel performance, they can also be a great product for you to incorporate into your healthy lifestyle.
Okay, sounds promising. But why are we just now going this route?
It took a lot of research to get here, a lot of nutrition science research, a lot of talking to consumers. As you know, we've been on the defensive for years because of fad diets, some bad science that's out there that we've had to defend, but the timing is right. It's all coming together. It's a great time to tell the story. And there's real life examples too that bring this campaign to life. A woman just won the endurance race in Colorado, and the whole way she was running, she was fueling herself with mashed potatoes. This is a true story based in science. That's why it's so great.
Sounds great. How can I help support the program?
Go to the website, go to Potatoes USA, go to the grower section, click on the What Are You Eating campaign. You can get great t-shirts, you can get other gear, you can get activation materials, you can request more information. But the bottom line is we got to get everybody in the industry behind this. We got to start pushing the What Are You Eating campaign and really bring it to life.
Great, thanks, Dan.
Okay, yep. So that's an example of, I hope I did okay at that, of how we can take that one page, how you take that one page and you start telling a consistent story. And again, I wish that I was brilliant enough to say that that's the first time I said that out loud. I was in my hotel room. Probably the person next door thought I was insane, but you got to say it out loud a few times. It's the only way you really get it to stick. I told Blair, I told the staff, I've been involved, not day to day, but I've been involved with this account for probably a dozen years. I'm not bullshitting you guys when I say it. Wow, we have an opportunity now. We can get people's attention. We can talk about this product in a new and exciting way. I think this campaign and the strategy is huge and presents a tremendous opportunity. And that's impressive, and so is the fact that I got done before noon. So that's what I've got. Thanks.